You're probably using your die cuts the traditional way, and that's great, but what if I told you there are 3 genius tricks that will take your die cutting to the next level? Today I'm showing you how to turn your dies into stencils, make elements float like magic, and piece together a design with an embossing twist. And trust me, you'll want to try these right away. Let's dive in. All right, so to create a floating card that we're going to create today, you're going to grab a die. This can be any type of die. It doesn't have to be layering flowers like I'm using. It really can be any sort of object, leaves, flowers, critters, whichever you like. I'm going to lay out all of my dies here and give you some tips when using layering dies as well to make them look even more realistic and beautiful and how to put them together. So I cut these out twice so I could get several flowers. My goal is at least 4 flowers, something that's going to cover the entire background. Now I am using a rotating mat here as well as a grip mat that's laying on top, and all I'm going to do is just grab the same color of ink and a blending brush. These are detailed blending brushes, so they're quite small, and I'm just going to ink up the edges. You don't have to do this perfectly. You can see with the leaves I'm just kind of going over top. The grip mat helps keep them in place. And then I'm going to go ahead and stick them all together. Now, the nice thing with Altenew is they have symbols. So this one has like a keyhole and the other one is an arrow. And they also have numbers that say 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm literally gluing them in that order, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it really makes them very, very easy to put together. These are the newer, I guess you could say, way of doing Altenew dies. Not all of them have been like this since they were first created, but I find the new ones to be so user-friendly and easy. And then the last little piece is the piece that covers the whole, which is really nice and easy to put together. So I put together all of the flowers in the same way, laid out the leaves on the back, and glued them down. Now, I went through that really quickly because, as I said before, it doesn't matter what kind of die you're using for the front. You could just use standard flowers that don't have layers. It's totally fine. So next up, I'm going to cut a piece of acetate that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. A piece of packaging or plastic packaging will work as well. And I'm just going to lay out my flowers here over top, trying to fill as much of the background as possible. And don't forget, you're going to trim the flowers off of the edges anyway, and you can use those leftover pieces and edges to create even more of a background and fill in any sort of gaps. So that's why I only cut 4 flowers, because I'm going to cut off the edges where the acetate ends, and I'll use those and stick them onto the sides. So once I'm ready, I'm going to glue those down and stick something heavy on top and let them sit for about 2 minutes because I need the glue to adhere to the acetate. You could also use double-sided adhesive if you want. So you can see that I stuck foam tape on the back of the flowers. I accidentally adhered this off camera, which is why there's some still on the card base, but you can see what I did. I put foam squares behind the leaves, behind the flowers, and I stuck them onto my card base. And this way here, they look like they are floating. We're going to take a final look at the card when we finish putting the sentiment on. I went ahead and heat embossed these simple strip sentiments onto a piece of black cardstock. These I always have in my stock and it was depleted, so I decided to create some more. So I stamped in embossing ink covered with white embossing powder and heated them. And then you can just place the die on top and die cut them, and it cuts out all of these sentiment strips. Now, me personally, I get rid of any sentiment strips I don't think I'm going to use right away before I put these into my little drawers so that I can use them at any point in time. Here is a final look at the card. You can see that the shadow under the dies make it look like they're floating. It's absolutely beautiful. I love this look. If you're enjoying these die cutting techniques, I encourage you to sign up for Justine Hovey VIP this month. Shh! Did you know that you'll just pay $14 and you'll get an exclusive video and a live class, access to over $600 in courses, and you can cancel before it renews again? This month's exclusive video is all about die cutting with acetate and vellum. We're also going to get together for a live class to create more floating card techniques that you have to try. Just a warning though, these are so good that you might not end up canceling your membership. All right, for my next technique and card, I am going to use my stamp platform, and I am placing my background stamp in the Misti. I'm putting the stamp, as you can see, in the area where I usually put my cardstock because this stamp's heavy because it's a cling stamp. So it's much easier to tape your panel to the door and stamp down than it is to actually put it onto the Misti platform the way you would normally use it. So I heat embossed this background in white embossing powder. And I'm now going to do an emboss resist. So we're going to do an emboss resist, but take it to the next level so that you could really get some cool backgrounds. So I'm grabbing Pucker Up ink and Merlot, and I'm just going in as slowly as possible, building up the color as we go along. Again, using my rotating mat with the grip mat on top. I had got this idea from an artist and I am absolutely obsessed with it. It makes it so much easier because I can turn it the way I want it to rather than having to extend my arms into weird positions. I just wiped it all off with a paper towel, and then I cleaned off my grip mat with a baby wipe. I'm now going to grab a cover plate die, and I'm going to die cut a white card panel as well as the panel that we just created. And you're going to save all of the pieces. You can create a 2-for-1 card, although I'm not going to lie, because these have such large spaces, I didn't care for the second card, so I didn't finish it. So going in now to create 2 card bases, I am going to score it on the short side here at 4 1/4 inches and then cut it on the 5 1/2. My panels are now, or my card bases are now done. I've created 2 of them out of 1 piece of cardstock, no waste. And now that I've folded them with the bone folder, we are all ready to go and have some fun. All right, so I'm grabbing a detailed glue pen here and I am going in with, and gluing these down. So I'm gluing the white one that I cut out, and then I'm going to glue the colored one as well. Now, as I said before, I don't like the look of the colored one when it was finished because the areas are so big, but if you're using a different cover die, you'll get a 2-for-1 card probably that will look quite good. So I'm paper piecing all of the colored pieces into the white frame, and then you could, if you wanted to, piece the white pieces into the colored frame. It's a bonus step that's not really necessary though. Now I'm going to place some of those white sentiment strips that I had stamped earlier as well. These are the white versions rather than the black ones. And I'm just going to place 3 of them on here. I think that's a really fun look, especially for this cover die look that's so geometric looking. I think it's such a fun card. All right, let's go with the last idea here. So I'm grabbing another die. This is an alphabet die that cuts out all the letters in one piece. Genius. So I'm going to actually use this to create a stencil, and I'm also going to use the letters to create a sentiment. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, attach this to my card panel and use a blending brush here in powder to create the letters. I am going heavier with the ink on the left side than I am the right side so that it looks kind of like the letters are fading off when I remove the stencil. So this is another great way to get more use out of your dies is to use them as stencils. Die cut them into, you could use a piece of acetate if it's something you think you're going to use often because you can reuse it and wipe it down, or just use paper like myself. I used a nice thick paper. Next up, I'm grabbing the letters. I attached them to some removable tape, some mint tape, and I'm dunking them in the ink by pushing them down with my fingers so I can dye them the same color as the background. I die cut a star, and then I added good luck here to my card along with my little helping hands that are helping me craft, sort of, kind of. And I'm adding good luck to the star. And this was just because if I had glued the letters onto my card panel, they would have kind of got lost and sort of in the background of it because they're the same image. So I wanted to make sure they had sort of a frame to stand on. And I think this looks much better than just having them glued directly onto the background. I love liquid glue because I'm able to just adjust and straighten things if I glue them crooked, and then I can just embellish the card and attach it to my card base. So this is a really fun, easy card with relatively few supplies, and just learning to stretch your supplies and thinking of them in a different way. Here's a final look at that card. If you love these die cutting tricks, you're going to be obsessed with Spotlight die cutting. It's an easy way to make your designs pop, and I've got 8 cards to inspire you, plus a special guest, Carrie Vanoy. Click here to watch.